Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Agents of Dev. I'm Mitch Ashley, lead and analyst practice here at the Futurum Research with my cohort, my friend, colleague, self-techie dude, whatever label we want to use this week, Brad Shimmin. Welcome, Brad. Good to see you.
I'm a victim of technology and loving every minute of it.
I know. My addiction is my passion. That's our
Does that
our
make
life,
it wrong?
No, I don't think so. Well, as long as it doesn't go too far, but yes, that's been my career, man.
If you take your pineapple pager on an airplane, this is a PSA, by the way. If you take your pineapple pager on an airplane coming back from DEF CON, do not turn it on and set up a rogue hotspot and try to capture everyone's an evil twin hotspot and capture everyone's information. That doesn't go well.
What could go wrong? Why would that be a problem? I don't understand. It's
Right.
perfectly legitimate, half a day ago in Las Vegas. Of course, a lot of things are permitted there, but
Yeah, that ain't one of them. Kicking everyone off Wi-Fi and then setting up an evil twin hotspot is not AP is not a good idea.
that's a great way to not be invited back to that airline, I'm sure. And a lot of other
or to your daily life.
Your daily life, yes. Yeah, I saw this meme. It said, let's see, if you take out a bank loan, you're on the hook for 30 years. If you just steal the money, you're maybe 10 to 5. I'm like, that's some really weird logic, but okay. This is like, and call me for more advice. Like, no, thank you.
Well, we can learn, but there's like the ideas of cookie stuffing, which I was not really acquainted with until very recently, owing to a very famous rich person and that person's daughter doing that as their business model. I'm like, okay.
Did you fall victim to that, or you just became aware of it?
Just became aware of it and thought, wow, there are a lot of ways to steal money from people.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
there's like a new one every day.
A new one. Thanks to AI, 10 new ones every day, I think. But
yeah, I'm sure that whatever she set up, it was vibe coded. Because why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it would be. Of course it was. Like I said, that's why Musk bought SpaceX. Bought Cursor, because they need to write the code how they're going to get back once they get there. So.
Right. And if you follow recent trends or posts from said individual, you'll see that they are going to or have already purchased the UK.
The whole UK?
The whole thing, apparently.
The whole thing. Wow. Okay. I didn't know. I guess we should go back and see if we can get Greenland then.
I'm sure it's just if they forgot about it for a minute. Goldfish do and goldfish do.
Maybe that was part of the deal. Oh my! So we're gonna have some fun this time.
Yeah, this is a saucy show. Everyone, sorry in advance.
That's what happens when you're on the road too much. But yes, this is our saucy show.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we both kind of equally shared some. I'll let you go first, and I'll kick in with my sauce.
Okay, this is a positive one. I'm not complaining. So this is my call out for the week. And it goes to Oracle. They have, and I've been following for many years, their Apex, which is basically a tool that you can use to build applications that free you from the bother of having to deal with where do I get the data? How do I access the data? Is it secured? Can I use it in this app? Boom, just done for you in a very well-governed, manageable way. And they are right now retooling or kind of creating what Apex is and what Apex does with the release they had earlier in the week called the Apex AI Application Generator, which is built on a new Apex Lang definition. So all caps Apex and then lowercase Lang, which is basically the language that is both human and machine readable. Meaning, like compiler happy, human happy, software. And the idea is that it can generate these sort of structured declarative applications, just as it's always done. And these can sort of they offer a lot of things that you kind of couldn't do elsewhere, or can't do elsewhere, I should say, such as be able to inspect, review, secure, and evolve that code over time in an agentic manner, with all the air quotes that deserves. But I mean, to me, it's awesome, because it's not just like, if Oracle wanted to say, hey, do something that's unique to us, that they would be like leading with PL SQL and here's just put it all in the database and run it there. That's not where they're going with this. This is meant to be, an intent-based, ground up framework for building applications. So instead of sort of, rooking up in Claude Code or whatever you want and getting, a Node.js, TypeScript-y with whatever the, framework of the day happens to be, you can actually have, a full data-centric application that is based on structured definition, wherein when you state your intent to build this thing, you're actually stating what the logic is, what the business is that's being done, the workflow, the tasks, the definitions, the metrics, etc. You define all of that in building this app, and it lives with the app. So you're not severing off, what the business logic is and what the data is from what the app is. They all live together. And I think that's really awesome. And if they can make Apex Lang a sort of, I don't want to say a standard, because we've all seen the XKFC thing, and that does not work. But the point is, if they can really get it out there, and they are trying to do that by open sourcing it and supporting it as its own endeavor here, that if they can help my agentic harness, whatever that might be, it'll probably still be Pi, but whatever that might be in the future.
Well, you got that in pretty quick. Nice job.
Thank you.
Your
Thank
Pi
you.
reference.
I am not sponsored by them. Seriously, I'm not. But I do adore that harness. Anyway, so whatever that is, it will be able to speak this natively and be able to sort of build agentic software with agentic practices, but do so in a very governed manner. And that's what we all kind of want right now.
Very interesting. We of course think of Oracle as a database company, but what you described is not a database company. That's a application platform company, really, sort of building the whole stack. Right. And yes, some of it's open source, and obviously a lot of it's built on, Apex and their products and that. But what it is an integrated platform, app platform for building apps, which in the world of AI, that's not the case right now, right? You're assembling this control plane, that control plane, this development, that data, this data source, these MCP servers. It's a bit of a 52 card pickup at the moment.
And worse, the sleep well, Wesley, I'll likely kill you tomorrow scenario when things change.
When the model changes, which is another beef of mine. But yes.
Yeah. You're totally right, though, man. It's like, they say this compiles, that Apex will basically compile those definitions and run them in the managed runtime. They don't even say database at that point.
In the managed runtime. That's interesting. Well, it's one of the things I often tell companies is, if you're going to sell to this particular community, this persona, whatever, you need to speak the language. You need to talk what they talk about, talk the way they talk, right?
Yeah.
So if you show up as a database company talking app dev, they'll say, you're a database company. What do you know about this, right? But if you come to the table like, okay, this is credible. I get it. So you seem to get it because you're describing it in a way, if I was going to talk to somebody or myself, I was going to build it, I'd build it that way, or I'd talk about it that way.
Yeah. So, we need the adults at the table. We always have. It's a good approach. Just tell them sometimes to let us play is all you need.
Yeah. Don't pay attention to what's happening over there. Here's what we need to pay attention to.
Only step in when the food starts flying. That's what we want.
It gets totally out of control. When, during the Thanksgiving dinner, when the football game turns into a SmackDown wrestling UFC match, then you might need to step in. But otherwise,
Right.
let the kids do what they're going to do.
Wow, you just described your childhood very succinctly.
Yes, yeah. Not that I have any, anything that bothers me about that I carry with as a life scar. No, not at all.
No, you're fine.
So we're good because I have a call out that.
What's your call out, man?
Yeah, my call out is both kind of an experience as well as an announcement. This week, Futurum put on we do a monthly webinar now, and it's targeted to the vendors, right? We're talking to the vendor community. And this one, Alex Smith, our GM of research, hosted it, had me on to talk about observability native and what's going on with that in the market. And he's been a big supporter of open standards and my work on that. In fact, he recommended some of the work that I pursued on it. It's great to have leadership like that. So we were talking about observability native, and some of the community knows about it. Others, it may be a new concept, but I spent a good bit of time talking about, the whole the flywheel of intent and reasoning and constraints and outcomes, and why really you have to plug in at the intent stage. And one of the to really be credible throughout. And one of the questions from the audience was, if you were in the observability market, what would you be focusing on? I said two things. One is intent, and second is taking action. You can't be a database, a data producer only. Better graphs, better data. We don't need that anymore. Yes, AI needs it, but humans can't consume it. And then, this announcement comes out with Dynatrace. They came out with Arise, that they had acquired them, and Arise
That was this
Arise,
week. Yeah,
that was this week. Yeah. And so it's kind of like saying a prediction and it happens at the same time. It may have actually happened before, but it was close enough to say at the same time. But, Arise is, I believe they're in a managed service model, if I remember right, but they're AI/ML observability, and they're one of the few companies, and this is what I said on that webinar is, the biggest change to expect is tons of acquisitions of smaller companies that help the large ones innovate faster and get ahead. Because them building everything themselves, A, they may not have the talent, but B, you can't do enough and you can't do it all yourself. So you do it by acquisition. So I'd expect a lot of M&A here. And this is a great example of one.
Can I ask you, do you think that where we are right now is very different from where we were just a year or so ago in terms of the viability or how beneficial it is to acquire a small company for its technology? Because when we look back, like, pick a vendor. If the acquisition wasn't meant to keep that vendor as a unique business, it sometimes would take 6 months, a year to actually see the results of that acquisition in terms of the technology percolating elsewhere. But I feel like where we are with agentic development practices right now, that it's so much easier for companies to ingest acquired insight or IP, I should say, and to then put that to work. Do you think that way?
I do. I think there are always going to be M&A of assimilate the company, and it takes 6 to 12 to 18 months to sort of get the new flywheel running. But I think you're spot on in that there's much more. Let it run. Let it be what it needs to be. Don't squash this thing unless we're just buying the talent. Like we need more developers. Yeah, or the tech, and we'll do something with it. But if it's a going business, keep it going, because that's part of the market you're trying to move into. So don't squash it, and then figure out how you roll it in. You don't. Hopefully, you don't want to get in a situation where now it's so separate, it still feels like we're two different companies. You have to figure out what that blending is. But
that's typically been the problem, right?
Absolutely. When do you pull that trigger? Well, look at GitHub,
right.
Microsoft. That's been a long time. Look at Red Hat, IBM. You can see many. Some of them are structural, cultural things. Others are, we're not quite in that business, or that's better left alone. We'll kind of integrate
like
it.
Tableau, Salesforce is one of those examples.
Tableau. That's a really good example. That's a great example. So the Arise acquisition, I thought, was notable because there are a couple of things they focus on. One is intent. We talk about that a lot. about you really can't observe anything. You really can't. Everything's an artifact. Everything's forensics, unless you're looking at this flywheel, the cycle that's happening with agents, starting with intent. So they do that. They focus on agent behaviors, right?
Mhm.
Meaning the kinds of things of, well, this will go into my gripe for the week, but
You just couldn't wait, could you?
I can't stand it. I can't stand it anymore. Perfect example of like lack of agent behavior was Opus 5 this week. I threw away 3 hours worth of work because everything it told me, it wasn't true. It's almost
What
true.
happened?
But I was doing a whole development session, doing some work on some specs, and I kept running into errors. It would tell me like, yep, great, got that done. I get into it. I'm like, no, you only got about halfway done. Hold on just a second. Need to finish that. Go back and do that. Oh, here's what the answer to this problem is. Here's what the fix of it is. Okay, great. Did you thoroughly investigate it? Yes. Go and start to work on it. Well, it turns out that isn't actually the fix to the problem. Like, well, why did you tell me that was the fix to the problem? So we got to the end of this, and this wasn't all
So
one
confidently.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't all one, 3-hour session or thing like that. It was over, maybe a day or day and a half. And by the end of it, I said, I'm actually going to throw away all the work from this session, not because I'm angry about it, but because I would have to go dig through all of this to really feel comfortable that I got what I thought I got. I'd rather just start over and not have to go fix errors, but start over and build it right because it's another 2-hour session because I know what I want. Yes, exactly. Absolutely. So so I started researching. It turns out this is not an unfamiliar problem with especially developers with Opus models, particularly 5, that with this whole let the model do more of it and let it solve bigger problems. I don't know if it's you're sort of context poisoning it with all the rules and stuff in your CloudMD file that throws it off, or it really just doesn't do this yet. But I felt a bit of a bait and switch. This is like, okay, this is this is my livelihood to develop code every day, and I found out the main model that I'm depending upon or the main provider is suddenly giving me a tool or a model that causes me to step backwards instead of forwards. Okay, at some point you got to, fish and cut bait. All right, I can't do this all day today or tomorrow. I'm going to go have to find something else, either a different model from them or somebody else.
Right.
So
You
it's
downgrade yourself, in other words,
yeah,
on the same
exactly
platform.
on the same platform, or I just say no. You know what? I'm going to go try this on Open Codex or something else because I do use more than one tool. So it's sort of the casualty of the race in the model and the software development industry for the best, the fastest, the furthest, the quickest. And there's casualties on that road to the best and fastest.
Every user is a casualty on that road, and at one time or another, not just like a one-time instance, but like a continuous. Where am I going to step on a landmine today? And it is really frustrating. It feels like to me like we're losing control of the tool chain that we use to get work done, and it's not just like a lack of transparency, although that is becoming kind of an issue in terms of how pricing works, which we could talk about. But for me, when I think about the tool chains that I use, the model, the harness, and any scaffolding that I've built underneath that, whether it's like an extension, a plugin, or a skill, or whatever, that I feel like the more capable that entity becomes, the less control I have over it, the more like a well-mannered bull it becomes. It's well-mannered most of the time, but if it sees red, just get out of the way. it's don't
it's
like
having
that.
a bad day, having a bad day, just pull it out of the China shop until the next day.
Exactly. So it's a little frustrating.
It is. And, it frustrated because I just had put out a note. We talked quite a bit about it last week of model companies, frontier companies want you to do less and less contextuals, rules, CloudMD, all the things, the harness that we built that you called it.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. The model will do that. I'm like, if you want me to turn this over to you, this is not the behavior to exhibit. And I have less confidence in doing that. Matter of fact, I want more scaffolding and more harness to make sure
That
you
you
don't,
control, that
that I
you
control.
own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Back to pie.
Yeah. I was wondering when we were going to go back to pie. Yes, go ahead.
I mean, you get like oh my pie and a whole bunch of derivations that bake in a number of plugins and different supportive scaffolding and tools. And they all will help Pi to behave much more on par with like a Codex or a Claude Code. But, you know, that gets heavy really fast. And I noticed it with what I'm going to talk about in the drop, which is Unsloth's new desktop app, which I've been playing with over the last couple of days.
Very nice.
And,
Well, let's do this. Let me close Dynatrace and then let's go right to that. Okay.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
can
yeah.
continue. So just close the loop with Dynatrace. This is a perfect example. Intent, agent behavior, why it belongs in the development environment. So Dynatrace, if you're listening, this needs to start at the very beginning, at the point of origin, when code, when plans, when agents start the whole development process. And if you aren't moving that way, you should come and do a briefing with me, and I'll help you. So, okay, sloth on. Not to put a little self promotion. Yeah, exactly. All right, going back to what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually, before we get to that, I want to whinge a little bit. My whinge is very much akin to what you're describing with your experience, and with the version 5 models. And actually, let me check. We have just over an hour before Quen 3.8, 27 billion. The dense model comes out, which I know that the reason why we've seen so much activity in the last week from both Meta and now yesterday from Google is terror, like stark raving terror over just how good that is likely to be. And I hate it. I really do. I mean, I get that competition drives innovation, but I fear a little bit that the whole strawberry marketing, kind of aspect of how we're bringing these innovations to people and how we're positioning them is making it so that it feels like I'm picking technology that I'm going to build into software that I expect to be, I don't know, consistent from day to day, into what might be akin to walking through a supermarket checkout line and going, oh, that's a nice candy bar. I think I'll pick that up. I don't want it that way. I don't want every time I
Cantaloupe's look
open
good
up.
this week. Let's do that instead of avocado.
Right, right. Then they get pimples. But I don't want to like open up Claude Code and see a promo for a limited time. You can access Opus for this amount of money, and then Google this week with their Gemini 3.7 Flash, which we've literally had 3 models from Google come out in the Gemini Flash arena in freaking less than 3 months. That's not consumable. That's not manageable. I maintain a lot of code using that system and running the Google models inside of Anti-Gravity and Gemini CLI, because I'm still not fully off of that. And I don't want to like have to go through the process of evaluating not just the capabilities or lack thereof as you're describing, or more chaotic behavior as you're describing, but also the billing, the sort of pressurized, Las Vegas-y style, use us today or you're gonna have to pay more tomorrow. And they all seem to be following that same, model, which is a very tried and true marketing technique that really has a lot more to do with the benefit of the company selling than it does with the consumer, consuming. And it bothers me. I want, as we've talked about before, I want a more consistent rollout. I want there to be more transparency into what these models are doing. I want pricing to be more consistent, which we had heretofore thought, gosh, China's doing a pretty good job of undercutting and doing so consistently. And then earlier this week, you get a nice little notice from the DeepSeek folks saying, by the way, prices are going to jump up dramatically. Is it like, should this really look like, the housing market or the oil, heat and
gas prices?
right. Should it really be like, are we now gonna remember when we would have apps that would tell you which gas station was the lowest price on that day? Do we really need that in our jobs? I think not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my whinge.
So building on that. So what it says to me is, who are you competing with and who are you doing it for? So all of this gyrations of, for something that's supposed to be a commodity, we sure come out a lot of versions of it, which also commoditizes it, by the way, makes your own problem worse. But
they're always breaking the commoditization, right?
They are. It's a circular firing squad, right? It's this like what I did last week has now been undone about what I did this week. Meanwhile, you kind of forgot the customer in all this. You're the customer, Brad. You're the person who's built the development pipeline, the harness, the environment to create all the things that you're creating, the work that you're doing. And this is disruptive to that. And so what happens is you tend to turn down the noise level. So all of those banners in Claude that say your subscription still this week includes, half of it for Claude for Opus 5.0, blah, blah. Well, that's what you said last week. And then it went away and now it's back. And it's kind of the point where I really don't give a dang. I mean, whatever you're going to do, I don't know what you're going to do. I can't predict it. So I'm not going to count on that happening because I don't want to be in the middle of something and saying, oh, you used up all your 5.0 resources. Well, now what do? I step back and now I have to operate differently. It's just a lack of understanding, not just the user experience, whether it's developer or end user, but what that does to disingenuate yourself from customers and their work they're trying to get done. We're not all running labs to play with this stuff, right? We're trying to get this into production and reliable. If I'm the CIO, I tell my people, stop messing around with the latest and greatest. Maybe this team, you can do a little bit of this so we kind of know what's on the horizon. Here's what we're sticking to that works. And here's how we're going to introduce new things. We're not going to be old and stodgy and slow. We're not going to be, whack-a-mole, playing whack-a-mole models every week, every day. It's out of control.
No, we don't want to solve a 0-day, oddity that we have to sit and figure out and debug every day. That's not down to a problem with software, but instead a subtle change in the supply chain and in the tool chain. It should not be that way. I'm with you, and I think that there's perhaps a bit of a confusion amongst the model makers right now in terms of how they think we're consuming this. If it's just, weekend vibe coders that are rooking up with a, one shot, build me something, they don't care. This is great because the next iteration might make that really good, but if you are maintaining, especially a sizable project, that is the last thing you want.
Yep. And maybe your greenfield startup can handle we're going to rebuild all of our scaffolding, our harness, all that kind of stuff. We can do it. Okay, great. Because it's not that big yet.
Yeah.
But there's a point, certainly enterprises, you're not going to rebuild that every other week. Then you're in the tools business, not in the business
Right.
that you're about. Right. So I don't know how long this is going to continue. Maybe it does for a long time. But I think the more it does, it spins into irrelevancy. Okay, yeah, that's the noisy neighbor, and they turn their TV up too loud after 9:00.
I think that's what they're worried about, and then that's why we're getting so much noise. That's why they keep turning the TV up and adding more TVs because they're worried about irrelevancy, and you can see just how easy or how low the bar is for entry and exit. They see that
a commodity. Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting paradox because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That I think is what contributes to your irrelevance, right? Kind of that noise. It's like in security. setting off alarms all the time. Pretty soon, nobody pays attention to them. It's like, okay, nobody's doing anything about it, so they must not be important. Same kind of thing
And
here.
therefore they're not.
Therefore, they're not.
Even if somebody, expires, it's just a part of doing hospital business.
That it is. So if it's okay, I want to go to another topic I wanted to bring up, and that is about sandboxes. GitHub had in their blog, I think it was in their developer blog, and a few other places I saw this too. The recognition that sandboxes have a wide range of what that means. That means all the way from I spun up an environment to do stuff in, kind of no controls around it other than it's a different environment and maybe I control it, maybe I don't. To something very locked down, high controls. You don't want it to escape model testing. You don't want things crossing boundaries, whatever you've defined as those boundaries being. But the challenge is, what sandbox do you think you're signing up for, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I go up and spin up a sandbox in GitHub. What controls come with that, and do I know what comes with that? Am I assuming anything about what it does or what it doesn't? I get containers. What should I assume, or what do I know that comes with that from a security standpoint? Containers aren't everything when it comes to security, obviously.
No, they
They're
weren't
part
really
of
built
it.
for that initially anyway.
No, they're transport packaging was their main kind of purpose to start with.
Exactly.
But companies like Docker are moving up into the control plane and governance and trust, and so is GitHub. And so with everybody kind of coming out with the same thing but different, sandbox environment here and there, whether it's in the cloud or in a GitHub or in, let's say, maybe a Docker someday, host their own services for doing that. Maybe they do it already. You just have you sort of buyer be aware, not necessarily beware, but be aware of what you're getting when, for example, when you buy something that is a sandbox. Is it a runtime environment? And that's kind of it with some basic controls, something that is highly secure. Where on the spectrum is that, and what do you need, right?
Yeah, that's why I would try to run most everything as a user in a browser that I can trust, and rely on that sandbox. Everything that we do on a computer should have boundaries around it. That's why ideas like immutable operating systems are so great, even though they're still a pain in the butt to work with. And we can only do better with more of that. I think the resources we have and the efficiencies that we've built are enabling us to do some really interesting things with that. And you mentioned Docker, and I haven't played with it much, but I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact name of this now, but they just rolled it out this week in a preview, I believe. It's basically a lightweight, Docker instance that's built for agents to use, for agents to stand up. So you can have like sub agents containerizing their own, environments, and those sorts of, it worked for the military in keeping secrets. Compartmentalization is a good idea when you don't want leakage.
Compartmentalization, good way to think of it. And I like your point about browsers because it does have containment built into it.
Mm-hmm.
There are sort of automation tools, a Claude or whatever, and kind of browser agent that could cross some of those boundaries. But it is actually a pretty secure way to isolate what you're doing. Let's say you're running, anti-gravity in a couple different environments. You could do that in a I believe that web interface, where you can keep those separate. I'm running, like this project A, project B. Maybe I'm doing a personal project and a work project, but it's a lot easier to keep those as opposed to I need to have different user accounts on a system level where that's going to be my kind of boundary control, which is a real pain in the butt because now you have to maintain a lot of infrastructure to what
Right.
how things operate and not just
Where
user
am I?
controls. But, yes. this is a black background. This is night mode. This is light mode. Or,
Yes,
you're
just
running
like
out of color.
when you do nothing but sit on the phone all day with different clients. You need different
Yes,
backgrounds.
they have the red phone and a green phone. So, so I bring up the whole point of I think we all have to be aware, whether we're on the vendor side or the consumption, the practitioner side of. It's really easy to jump on the bandwagon of terminology, which that's not going to stop.
No.
But I think you owe it to your market, your customers, to bring also some clarity with that. Here's what we think of a sandbox. That's all you have to do is answer that question to pick on sandbox, right? Rather than just saying, we have sandbox capability. This is what that
Yeah.
means to us.
Right.
Following things.
Right.
Okay, great. Now I know what I get with that, or I don't. And can make an informed decision about that. So it's kind of a two-way street. I think it would help. I would help the vendor side immensely, because we're in such a circular. Everybody comes out with the same thing within each other within a couple of weeks.
We're
Product
all
life
surfing the
cycle.
same wave. Yeah.
Yes,
Just
exactly.
seeing who can ride it out the longest. Yeah, and it's interesting you
Yep.
say that because I myself am guilty of not taking the time or feeling like I have the time to actually understand the tools that I use. So, for instance, within Gemini CLI and within Anti-Gravity, the CLI, they have like a toggle that you can set for sandboxing. But in order to like find out what that actually means, and the limits of it and how to work with it effectively, it's like a huge commitment to figure out. So, the pragmatist is like, well, I'm using, a virtual environment. I'm containerizing outside of this, so maybe I don't care. But maybe I should be caring, and that's the problem.
Yeah, someone said to me, I have really good advice. I never take my own advice, but I have really good advice. It doesn't mean I follow it. It's kind of, the patient, a doctor usually take thine own medicine to see if it really works. But I hear you. It is hard not to sort of keep at the pace, the velocity of what's happening, and sort of like skip over. Normally I'd check that out. I don't have time at the moment, or
Right.
it'll come out in the wash, or whatever your
And the
reasoning
moment never
is.
comes.
Totally get it. And the moment never cycles back. It's just like the prototype never goes into production. No, those things don't happen. Not. So, were you ready for our last segment? The
Yeah,
drop?
let's do it.
Okay, it's time for the drop.
All right, I'll let you kick this one off, please. Please save me from myself. Kick this one off.
Yeah. This one, actually, we've been talking a little bit about it just now, with, containerization. And so I've been, as we've talked about on the program before, a big fan of a company called Unsloth, which has focused on helping builders to do things like fine-tune models. And they do a lot more than that. And they're very much tied into Hugging Face, have for a long time. But that's not the only companies they work with. I'm just bringing that up because when people, that are experimenting, because that's all we seem to be doing, not producing, they want to be able to say, there's a new methodology for quantization for this, or there is a particular group that is running some reinforcement learning that is unique to my situation and would help me. And so, Hugging Face is a great resource for that because that's where most of these companies will post their wares that they've been building. But anyway, Unsloth has, for a long time, been basically giving not just like they started actually making notebooks, like Jupyter notebooks with, like code built out to do some of these very complicated tasks and do so very easily. And they've been steadily improving and building that into what, not too long ago was rolled out as Unsloth Studio, which is a browser-based, more LM Studio looking interface that still has all of those controls and a lot of the really cool stuff built in, that you get with them. So things like and this, sorry, I should actually keep going to the point, which is Unsloth Studio is like a subset of Unsloth Desktop, which is a very new product from them, which is, basically like on Linux, it's an app image or a Debian file or whatever, and you can do it on Windows and Mac as native code. And that lack of, the lockdown that I get by running this in, a locked down browser as I can with Studio, with the desktop, I can do things I can't do in the Studio. Like I can actually work with like the H3 model for generating videos, for instance, out of that. And so there are benefits to being native. I will not argue with those. But if you don't need to, what's the harm in actually using a more controlled environment like a browser for software like this? Because it's just running, for the Studio, you're just running a local host to access it. But anyway, I bring it up because it is like this terrific sort of package right now that does a lot of the things that were very difficult if you're just using this to not just build models and fine tune models, but also to just work with AI locally. So you know how there are all these tutorials about how to, basically vectorize your Obsidian vaults and build it, bring it in, and that's very hard to maintain over time. So it actually takes care of that for you. So you can basically just open up, point to a folder and it'll just synchronize ongoing all the time. So you always have an up-to-date index of whatever you put in there to manage and work with. But it's a lot more than that. So they actually have built this to be an agentic harness and to work with agentic harnesses. So I can plug it into Codex and have Codex work through it. I can use it to access and see all the models locally that I've run or I installed from Olama and LM Studio and Llama CPP and other environments for executing these models. It just sees all of them and can bring them all in. It also works with the hosting providers like OpenRouter. It just plugs in, and you can access all of those there too. So it's a very nice like unification to just work with models.
Sounds like it takes a lot of the management overhead, connectivity, all of the things you need, but that harness, if you will, we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Taking a lot of that load off of you.
Well, it's like, and it's not just to like simplify it. You can pop the hood on this thing and go as deep as you want. But the thing that's interesting, back to your point earlier, is that the harness itself has built-in tool correction. So like if there's a blockage or a failure on a tool call, it will self-repair right there, regardless of the model you're using. That's interesting. I mean, it's the same reason why we think about harnesses as being kind of important.
Yeah, if it's a problem it created, it's on its own, and then it can self-repair. It kind of like we're sure at a zero-sum gain here, but solving problems. Not that I'm still back on my Cloud Opus experience.
That's a business opportunity for per token cost is what that is.
Yes, it is. Very much as well. That's cool. That's an excellent example of what we're talking about, of focusing on the end user experience and increasing the productivity of what they're doing. I've got the ability to jump under the hood when I need it, but I don't have to live under there all the time.
Exactly.
So, very cool.
Yeah, give it a try if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Okay. What's the website? Do you remember .com or?
Oh, it's you can just go to unsloth.ai because everything is .ai.
.ai, yes. So oldschool.com. I want to do a shout out to Atlassian. They came out, they made their announcement around code context. And it was bigger than just an announcement about context of code, bringing context to your code base, but they tie it into thinking about it as a more multi-step process, how it ties into Rovo, how it ties into IDEs, how it ties into Terminal, how it ties into Jira. So it's not a feature per se, but it's a capability that is enabled through all these other products, right? Because you're not going to go in and say, well, let me look at the context of my code. That's going to be embedded within other tools, right? So it's more of this holistic systemic view of it. I haven't had a chance to look at it in much detail myself, but knowing them, and they're pretty pragmatic folks, even though they tend to be on the leading edge of things, on trends oftentimes. I think that's substantial, because that's the theme I'm on right now is don't create more work for us. Let's help people produce more output. And we have to kind of quit the craziness. So these are the kind of things I like to see. So hats off to Atlassian and other folks that are doing the same kind of things. We do appreciate it.
It is appreciated, isn't it? And don't need another, like, now you need to maintain your mistakes.md file next to your soul.md next to your claude.md. Come on.
I now have the mistakes made for the third time.md.
the really egregious mistakes.md.
Didn't we make that mistake before? I'm pretty sure we did.
The how could you do this to me again .md.
And by we, I'm being very generous. You model.
Right. The royal we.
The royal we. Well, hey, it's been a lot of fun. We're going to have a special guest. Tracy Reagan from Deploy Hub is going to be on next week. And she isn't really representing Deploy Hub. She's an open source guru, contributor. She is a developer, but she's also someone who is passionate about giving back in all the right ways. And she's been a longtime friend. She's on Textron Gang quite a bit. I used to do Fridays. Since we're now recording on Friday, I don't do Textron Gang often with her anymore. But I know you'll enjoy talking with her. We're going to get into AI and development, probably some security parts of it. She's very much into deployment, GitOps. You could probably tell by her company name, GitHub.
Yeah.
Deploy Hub, excuse me. So we'll, it's not a sponsored session. We're just going to invite her as a fellow practitioner, not an analyst, but, we can learn a lot from her because
Absolutely.
of that. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be terrific.
Be a new kind of person that we haven't had on, someone like this before. So maybe we can do more of that too.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, hey, Brad, it's been great fun. Lots of therapy today. This is, we'll put the therapy tag on this session.
Seems every session is to a degree, but I have the feeling that, the frustrations that we feel are the same frustrations that most of the folks watching this feel. And
absolutely,
hopefully, that
probably a fraction of what they feel if they're doing this full time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we feel your pain, but we appreciate you guys, coming and listening and joining us on these. It's we're very grateful to you.
That we do. We do. We appreciate every minute you spend with us. So hopefully you'll come back next time. We'll have a lot of fun with Tracy Reagan on the show, and we look forward to doing that. On behalf of Brad and myself, thanks for watching, listening to Agents of Dev. We'll see you next time.
Control, this is Agent Dev. I'm in position.
Copy that, Dev. Stand by for go.
Standing by.